guys, Ken McClellan.
Hello Waters, hello Lewison.
We've had a surprising meeting this morning, which has probably prompted us to do a succession of videos for you, or a succession of WODs.
We had an epiphany.
The epiphany was brought onto us. Al and I obviously grew up in Melbourne. We started investing best part of 20 years ago and developing in a certain pocket of Melbourne, probably across about 6 different suburbs. So as far as development goes, we really broke our teeth and understood that Al's old man's probably been developing in the same area for another 20 years on top of that. So over those years, we've got to know the local agents really well, to the point where you consider them family friends. They come over for dinner, we catch up, we go out. So they obviously bring us all the deals. And the epiphany came when we were talking to
T-Bone.
T-Bone, a particular agent. And he had a smirk on his face, and we said, "What are you laughing about?" Because he knows we study investment strategy. And he had a smirk on his face, and he said, "Someone walked into my office this morning and said, I want to buy an investment property." And we just felt this was so true, or so common, with people just buying in their local area. Now, I don't know, what do you think he said after that?
Well, he said, "I'm going to take you interstate and show you somebody else's listing, and maybe you could buy that." No. What he said was, "Yep, I've got a property around the corner, perfect view for an investment," and he took them off and showed him that property. Now, that was actually one of the properties we're developing. It wasn't good enough for us as an investment, wasn't good enough for our clients as an investment, but obviously good enough for this person walking off the street. So the epiphany was that we need to explain to people why property selection is so important in building their portfolio, and the massive difference it can make by choosing the wrong properties.
Yeah. So we're going to do a succession of videos, probably to crystallise for you how people pick property currently, and then give you some basic tools on how you can select good property. So the first thing is the comprehension of why Al and I, and a lot of people we know, invest across multiple cities, capital cities. So I'll go into depth across this series of videos on market cycles and how to identify market cycles and where it is at a point in a market cycle, not based on the newspaper hype, but based on facts and some basic checks that you can do. But Al, you can probably give us a rundown of why we move across market cycles rather than investing in one capital city market, and how that means across your lifetime of investment.
Absolutely. Hang on to that.
Cool.
Sorry. So we look at it, people's working career will span from 20. Let's say...
Can you keep your concentration while I do that?
Watch out for the bug. So, people's working life is 20 to 50 years old. Now, their 20s, they're thinking about going out with their friends, probably meeting their wife, maybe buying their first home. Let's say about 35, they get real and think, right, I need to think about the future, I need to buy an investment property. So, 35, they buy themselves nice investment property.
Investment one.
Now, if this same couple, that stage couple, are only buying in Melbourne, they're going to go through maybe 3 property cycles. So they buy the property, goes up in value through a property cycle of 10 years, and at 45, guess what? They can buy some more. 10 more years, 55, well, they're going again. You get the gist. However,
I'll still do all right, don't get me wrong.
they're not going backwards. If you look at it like this, at 35 they buy a property in Melbourne. The Melbourne market moves a little bit, and they look to Brisbane. They get into Brisbane 2 years later because the market's moved.
That's 2 properties.
These are houses, not people like it. The Brisbane market moves a little bit more. Well, guess what? They can look at doing it again. They can move into Perth, they can move into Sydney. The point being, guys, the markets are all moving at different times. So if you're reliant on being on one market waiting for that to move, you're going to wait a long time. If you're in multiple markets around the country, all moving at different times, all with different drivers on the property market there, you're going to compound your growth a bit quicker.
So what you're saying is, rather than waiting the full cycle, and you might luck it and get in at the right point in time. We lucked it when we started investing and got in at the start of a growth period. But once you've had that growth, what smart investors do is take their money and their equity and they move into another market. So really, instead of waiting 7 to 10 years, you're getting into a market, get some growth over a number of years, get your equity out of that, move into the next market. When you start to understand market cycles, this is one thing that I really love. What happens, the amount of investors in cities like Melbourne and Sydney, for example, once those larger markets have had some growth, the smart investors from those markets then look elsewhere. So the influx of investors into markets like Perth and Brisbane can really cause a real stir to those smaller markets when the excess stock's soaked up. So I hope that's given you an understanding of why we invest in different markets and why you should look outside your local area, because if you're walking to an agent, they're not going to say this is not a good area to invest. They're going to sell you a property, so they do.
Thanks for the epiphany, T-Bone.
Thanks, buddy.
Have a good day.